Rhetorical criticism is defined as a qualitative research method designed for the systematic investigation and explanation of symbolic acts. Rhetorical critics engage in this act in order to make a contribution to rhetorical theory, or in other words, come to a conclusion. In order for the rhetor to come to a conclusion, they must take a side, or else they're not accomplishing anything. Would you rather read a book that had stellar reviews and numerous recommendations, or a book that had mediocre reviews? Those average reviews were a result of critics being unable to come to a conclusion about whether or not they liked the book because they did not take a side. We can use logic to conclude that if all judgments require the taking of sides, then all critics make judgments, which means all critics are required to take sides.
A rhetorical critic can take a position in favor of the rhetor and provide constructive criticism. We can see this using the example of a debate or speech coach and the 5 canons of rhetoric: invention, arrangement, style, delivery, and memory. A coach would critique their speaker's logic, how they structure their points, word choice, poise, and if and how they use notes. The arrangement we're most used to seeing is the negative rhetorical critic, who aims to expose flaws and undermine the credibility of the rhetor. Where the positive critic is constructive, the negative critic is invective. Politicians and pundits offer negative rhetorical criticism. They attack the invention of the rhetor by objecting to proposed solutions, and they attack memory and delivery when a speaker overuses notes or a teleprompter.
I know you got yourself in a little bit of hot water because you said that President Obama shouldn't be showing up on the Zach Galifianakis show.
It wasn't quite that simple. The president did the interview before Ukraine, all right? And that's important to know. My point was, in this time when Putin is really giving it to President Obama, this is about Putin and Obama. It's not about anything else. And Putin's giving
Is it really that simple?
Yeah, oh yeah. Putin is giving it to him because the United States, obviously the most powerful nation in the world, Russia, Putin doesn't like that, and he's trying to just jab us. So the timing wasn't right. It wasn't completely the president's fault because he didn't know Putin was going to invade, which he should have. The CIA should have given him a little tip. So anyway, I said, look, in this time, appearing on a program like that doesn't send the right message. Then I said Abe Lincoln wouldn't have done it in a time that he lived in. Because you remember I wrote a book on Lincoln, in a serious time when...
When are you going to write a book about me?
Bill O'Reilly criticized President Obama's style and delivery for appearing on Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis.
The recession that FDR had to deal with wasn't as bad as the recession Coolidge had to deal with in the early 20s. Yet the prescription that Coolidge put on that from history is lower taxes, lower regulatory burden, and we saw the roaring 20s where we saw markets and growth in the economy like we'd never seen before in the history of the country. FDR applied just the opposite formula, the Hoot-Smalley Act, which was a tremendous burden on tariff restrictions.
What was the name of the act there? And who did it? What?
FDR applied just the opposite formula, the Hoot-Smalley Act.
Hoot-Smalley, known to everybody else as Smoot-Hawley. Signed actually by Hoover, but hey, call it FDR, what the heck.
Rachel Maddow criticized Michelle Bachmann's style, specifically correctness, in a speech about the Smoot-Hawley Act.
Rhetorical critics are required to make judgments on rhetorical works, and we can't separate the critic from their judgments. As is the case with all of us, who we are, the beliefs we hold, the things we value, our backgrounds, our interests, and so much more, is what gives rise to the decisions, feelings, actions, and judgments that we make. The criticisms that rhetorical scholars make are inseparably tied to the critics themselves. Many people try to stay objective in their views when judging a work, but really what they mean is that they're trying to separate their opinion from themselves. It's like trying to separate the light from a light source, trying to separate sunlight from the sun. To avoid taking a side when making a criticism is to avoid making a criticism at all, leaving us all in the dark. Instead, what a rhetorical critic can do is avoid taking a stance in an unprofessional way, which is really what's being called into question here. To say that a critic should avoid taking sides is really making a point that a rhetorical critic should remain professional to keep credibility in their criticisms. Rather than trying to undertake the impossible task of separating themselves from their opinions, rhetorical critics should instead strive to maintain good ethos or character in their criticism.